distinguished guests, dear members of the media, and dear colleagues, I welcome you all. This year marks a milestone in the history of the CREF and the Cyprus Institute. It is a year of changes in both the leadership of the CREF and the Cyprus Institute. It is therefore with great honor and privilege that I stand before you today as we bid farewell to our esteemed outgoing chair of the Board of Trustees, Professor Dan Olof Riska, and welcome our new chair, Professor Didier Roux. I would first like to invite to the floor the chair of the Executive Committee, Dr. Andreas Pittas, to say a few words.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, today is a historical day for us. We will change, as Stalo said, the chair of the board and the president of the Cyprus Institute. I have to thank cordially Dan Olof Riska, who guided us for 5 years and who, with his agreeable personality and wisdom, managed to solve a lot of running problems. He also managed a friendly approach to the administration staff of the Institute. My sincere thanks, dear Dan Olof, for your great contribution. Didier, welcome to the new position. We know you, and we are all confident you will continue the good work of your predecessors. Professor Kostas Papanikolaou, who was here all the time from the very beginning and who managed the Institute of Cyprus for so many years, is leaving his presidential post today to give the baton to Professor Stavros Malas. To describe Kostas, with whom I was lucky to cooperate the last 12 years, I will need a lot of time, which unfortunately we do not have now at hand. However, I'm confident that everyone present today knows of his immense contribution to the Institute. We are greatly indebted to him and his absolute dedication to the top position we are now. Finally, Professor Stavros Malas, whom I know from the time he was a Minister of Health, is a renowned scientist with impeccable records, and I am sure he will be a good CEO, President of the Institute. The Executive Committee will be on his side to assist him in his difficult task. I thank you for your attention and your time.
Thank you, Dr. Pittas. Now I would like to offer a warm welcome to Professor Edouard Brezin, who will give us an overview of the CREF Board of Trustees, starting with its creation. Professor Brezin, please.
Thank you. I have to open my computer, if I can. Okay, I'll hold it. No, it will work. Okay, well, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it's an important day, and I've been charged to give an overview of the institutes. Don't be scared. I will do that in 3 minutes, 5 minutes at most. In the first years of the young 21st century, a handful of enlightened Cypriot citizens had the vision that their country should host a research university, an internationally recognized institution which would attract the best people irrespective of their citizenship. These daydreamers belong strangely to the bank area. I'm amazed, but I met them, I can testify. And they were soon joined, in fact, preceded by a Cypriot professor in the US and in Athens, Professor Papanikolaou. Their ambition was considerable in many aspects. The first one is, how does one start a research institute in an environment which didn't have, never had, a research tradition? Instead of, also the second point, which was very attractive but original, is instead of starting with traditional department like usual university, where you start with department of mathematics, physics, chemistry, and so on, they chose to start with topics of modern science which were of major interest for the present society. This was a completely original viewpoint. They said, well, look at energy, water resources and management, computational sciences, even archaeology, which of course existed for a long time in this beautiful island, which is full of archaeology and art history, but didn't have any mean for analyzing all these beautiful artifacts. The third challenge was to convince the best people who enjoy a good position somewhere else to move in a place where there was no research tradition, no labs, no building even. How does one convince the best students to choose to do a PhD in a scientific unknown location which wouldn't do any good for their CV? And the last point, not the smallest, was, can one build an institution in which, irrespective of the conflicts of the surrounding world, of the tragic division of this island, science could be a link between men and women of goodwill? So clearly this was a formidable ambition. When I joined the newly founded CREF, Cyprus Research and Educational Foundation, in 2005, there was no Cyprus Institute. CREF, beautiful CREF, was a pair of offices downtown, nothing else. And in terms of personnel, I remember Kostas, I remember our dear Carita Poliou, and Michalis here, and there was another young Greek with you, but that's all I could remember at the time. So that was CREF. The first task of CREF was to choose a pilot, although there was no boat to steer. So a president position was advertised. Several candidates applied, including, after a significant arm twisting from his friends, Kostas Papanikolaou, after which there was no hesitation. The Atalanta campus in which we are started in 2007, but only with the Horizon building nearby, opposite, which was inaugurated toward the end of 2007. Every piece of land in those surroundings, which are now from the Institute, has been granted to the Cyprus Institute after fierce entrenched battles. Hopefully finished, I don't know. For quite some time, it was, as expected, extremely difficult to convince established scientists to move to Cyprus. The Board of Trustees tried to help. I must say I was amazed to discover this international group of very busy people. If I can remind you of who this first Board of Trustees, I remember two American colleagues, one who had been advisors to the president, Richard Cooper, another one who was to become a minister in Obama's government, Ernie Moniz, We had the former director of CERN, Herwig Schopper. We had the baroness, English baroness, Susan Greenfield, and the director of the Alexandria library, Sarah Geldin, and Hani Elal, who is still with us, maybe still listening online, I don't know. But the burden was really on Costa's shoulders. If the Cyprus Institute is what we see today, it is Costas all along. Thanks to his own acquaintance with the top world institution in the US and even in France, I'm amazed. His scientific leadership, in which he acted, he was president, but he was a scientist among the others. His enthusiasm, his vision of science, which led the Institute. His open-mindedness to new ideas. His uncompromising requirement for excellence, rather than filling an open position simply because it was open. Its strict attachment to the best procedures and to ethical values. The past was never a walk through a rose garden. Some outside of this building have enjoyed sowing thorns and even sometimes anti-personal minds. But finally, the initial vision prevailed. When I contemplate the Cyprus Institute today, I'm amazed by what I see. A staff of nearly 300 and more of 200 in research, more than half international. I read the number of publications, highly cited, much above EU average. In terms of competitive grounds at the EU level, the Cyprus Institute is really at the top, maybe even the most successful of EU institutions. There are now 3 approved PhD programs, and as the new president, Stavros Malas, has insisted today in our meeting, it's rare that a research institute is allowed to deliver PhD. If you take France, CNRS doesn't deliver PhD. The Max Planck Institute do not deliver PhD. They have to have an agreement with a nearby university. The Cyprus Institute has succeeded to that and now has even master degrees. So the Cyprus Institute is now fully a research university. Research universities are those in which there are laboratories teaching at PhD level, and there are few, very few like that in the world. So I'm not going to speak of all the buildings. You can walk around the campus now. The Proteas facility I recommend to visit. It's a bit far, and there are others. So I should not spend time on that. So I think I want to express on behalf of many people here all our recognition to Kostas for this extraordinary achievement in such a short time. The new president of the Cyprus Institute, Professor Stavros Malas, inherits of this precious child. It's not a newborn anymore, but I think it still requires a considerable attention and support from the whole community to bring the Cyprus Institute further and higher in its remarkable trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Brezon. Under the exceptional leadership of Professor Riska, CREF has supported tremendously the growth, innovation, and impact of the Cyprus Institute. His unwavering commitment to CREF's mission has helped us expand our research, build partnerships, and increase our capacity to address some of the most pressing challenges facing our society today. Professor Riska, we are deeply indebted for your service as chair of the CREF Board of Trustees. I invite you to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Stalo. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I very much regret that I was not able to complete my attempt to travel to Cyprus on Wednesday. It would not have been easier on Wednesday afternoon because of internet problem. All Lufthansa flights in Germany stopped on Wednesday afternoon. And to make this more interesting, today all flights to Munich, Hamburg, and Frankfurt are stopped because of a strike. So you see, traveling is not that easy. It is my privilege and pleasure today to hand over the chair, very comfortable chair, of the Cyprus Research and Educational Foundation to Professor Didier Roux, trustee emeritus and most recently chair of the Scientific Advisory Committee of CREF. This represents a return to the earlier tradition of CREF to have a distinguished French scholar as chair of the board. This bodes well for the future. Dear Didier, there is really nothing that I can tell you that you do not already know about CREF and the Cyprus Institute, in view of your long service as a CREF trustee and as a member of the executive committee. And as a former graduation ceremony speaker at the Cyprus Institute, you are very well known to its faculty and students. With your long and distinguished service as a director of research at Saint-Gobain, you have all the experience that one could wish for overseeing the efforts at the Cyprus Institute to create innovations that can be translated to commercial products. With my own experience as chair of CREF for the last 8 years, I can assure you that you will enjoy the trust and friendship of all the trustees. And with this, it only remains for me, dear Didier, to wish, may the force be with you.
Thank you, Professor Riska. Now, I would like to invite our new chair of the Board of Trustees, Professor Roux, for his speech.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Danolov. Danolov has been a wonderful chair of the Board of Trustees. I've known him for now, I don't know, probably 10 years, 9 years. And it has been really a pleasure to work with him with his responsibility. What I like very much about Danolov is the fact that he's going straight to the point. He's not somebody who is wasting time to talk, forgetting about where we want to go. He's going directly to the point, and it has always been a pleasure. I like that a lot. I'm not sure to be able to do the same, but at least he has been extremely efficient to do it. Also, he went through with all the teams and all the institutes through many problems that we had to solve, and he has been wonderful in always facilitating the best solution, and there was some time where the solution was not easy to find. And dear Danolov, I would like to express all my gratitude to what you have done and what you will continue to do somehow, because I'm sure that you will stay with us by any means. So thanks a lot, and it has been really a pleasure to have you as the chair of the board. It's an honor for me to accept this position after Hubert Curien, Edouard Brézin, and Dan Olof. And I am the fourth president of the board of trustees of the CREF. And it's obviously, as you understand, a big responsibility that I take. And I accept with pleasure, but with also a little bit of fear. Today I was chairing the first, my first board of trustees. It's extremely animated. Everybody is expressing a lot of ideas, a lot of discussion. It's really not only extremely interesting, but not always easy to manage. But okay, they are good people. A little bit about the history. So I joined the board of trustees in 2010. And Costas and Edouard asked me to join. I didn't know, because at that time I did not know about Cyprus, I did not know about the institute. It was a small institute. The board was already prestigious, and at that time the board was a little bit big compared to what was the institute. Now it's more reasonable. So the problem was just to wait that the institute grows to reach the level of the board. That's what you have done. With the help of Costas, obviously. What I like very much about the institute is that the vision, as Edouard was explaining, the vision of the people who have built this institute was extremely impressive. And in this vision, there is something that touched me a lot, which is not only to be a leader in terms of fundamental science in the region, but also in the world, with competing centers all over the world, in Europe, but not only in Europe. And this is already a task which is very impressive. But which is more difficult is to do that on problems which are interesting for the region. And when you couple the two constraints, it's not something which is as easy as to build a good center of research in France, in UK, or in Germany. It's something which is much more difficult to do, and it has to be done, and it has been done in Cyprus. And this is extremely impressive, and it's why I'm extremely happy to be part of this story, because I do believe that it's a little bit unique and extremely useful for Cyprus, for the region, and for the rest of the planet. I'm completely convinced of that. So the second thing I would like to do is to thank Costas. Costas is a wonderful person. He is a scientist, and he's still a scientist. He has always been passionate about science, but he's also a great manager and also somebody who not only have been part of the vision that I was talking about, but also was able to make it real. And I think very often I very often explain to my students that having ideas is easy. What is more difficult is to realize the idea. And it's exactly what Costas has been done. Obviously, Costas has not been my student, as you understand. And will never be. Okay, so now that this baby center in 2010 is becoming adult, I think we have now in front of us a challenge which is absolutely wonderful. We went through difficult times, but we went through extremely exciting times also. Stavros has now to take the responsibility of running this center. I think Costas left something which is very good, very nice. Obviously, there are problems, but there will always be problems, so there is no doubt about that. But from what I can see, I have the feeling that the center is probably at its best it has never been in the past. And it's wonderful that Costas left you, Stavros, a center which is maybe not perfect, but as good as it could be. And what will happen, I don't know. Obviously, during all this time, the center grows, up to which, obviously, there is a limit, which is the limit of the island. the center cannot be as big as Cyprus, because something else has to happen in Cyprus than the science which is done at the center, but at least there is some room to expand, and that will be the decision of the board and Stavros to decide until which it has to go. I am extremely confident now that we are in an exceptional place with exceptional people. And for me, another big pleasure has been to interact directly with members of the staff, students, and postdocs, not as much as I would have liked, but it's clear that the center is not only the people who are managing the center, but it's also, and first of all of the scientists, all of the staff members who are participating to do something which is probably the best thing to do in the world, is to try to understand how our world is working. So thanks a lot, and for me it is a pleasure to take this responsibility, even so I'm sure it will not be so easy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Roux. Now I would like to invite the CEO of the CREF, Professor Papanikolas, to present our outgoing and incoming chairs with a small present on behalf of the CREF Board of Trustees. No?
In a bit.
Έτσι μου το μάθω.
Στο τέλος, δεν πειράζει. It's okay.
Okay.
I'll see you. It's okay. It's okay. We'll leave the presents for the end. So I'll try to say a few words myself now. So, dear trustees, distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends, it has really been a great privilege for me to have been given the opportunity to follow up close and personal the development of the Cyprus Institute from the very beginning. And it is really an honor for me that I was asked to give this short address today. An honor and privilege since I get the opportunity to formally express gratitude and appreciation to our board and to Kostas Papanikolas. At the same time, I have the chance to formally welcome Stavros Malas to this new era for the Cyprus Institute. Given we have just celebrated the successful service of Danolov Friska as chair of our board, I would like to offer my perspective as an employee of this institute. I have been so privileged to work closely at times with both Danolov and his predecessor, Eduard Brazden. What comes to mind, first and foremost, is the strong and active engagement of both of them in advancing the growth and development of our institute. They supported and guided us during periods of extreme success, but they never shied away and stood by us in difficult times as well. In the face of crisis, our board, under their stewardship, has demonstrated time and time again that whenever there is unity of purpose, we have the capacity to act to address any situation. And the purpose for the existence and development of the Institute is a truly noble one, both for Cyprus and our region. You all know our vision. I will not repeat it here. The board, now under the stewardship of TDRU, is asked and needs to do more. I am sure they will respond to the best possible way. I know they are here for us. Eduard, Danolov, words cannot describe our gratitude for everything you have done for us. Thank you. Now, looking back in the past 18 months, a period that Kostas had to return to the Institute's helm to steady the ship again, it has been an exceptionally busy period and at times quite turbulent. We have had to deal with a rapid succession of important situations, some of which are still unfolding. Indeed, for me personally, it has been a most eventful period throughout, challenging, but on the whole, a most rewarding experience. It's a period that reflects in many ways the last 15 years of the short history of this institute, but very long years for most of us. We have been through a lot, big successes, international recognition and praise, but also failures and justified or unjustified heavy criticism. It has been an amazing journey for most of us. From the time of having lunch, during lunch breaks together, all the employees of the Institute, in a single small kitchen, that was back in 2007, to now, when I see a full room of at least 120 people. I have been so fortunate to experience the creation and amazing growth of this institute to what it is now. I'm very proud to be a member of this amazing and vibrant community. As you all know, Kostas Papanikolas was at the very center of everything since day one. It is not my intention to list out all what we have accomplished with Kostas at the helm. I believe everything around us speaks for themselves. Kostas' vision for the establishment of a place in Cyprus where people come together and work together across disciplinary boundaries is now a reality. During Kostas' presidency, the staff grew from essentially 0 to almost 300 people. The increasing research excellence of the Institute is evident through several performance indicators and impressive statistics. We are the national champions in European funds acquired per researcher with the most impressive success rate in competitive research bids. Our campus is growing, and it's a very welcoming place for all. We are enjoying recognition for our work and accomplishments. Dear Costa, you have steered the Institute through a lot with great energy, resilience, and concern. Nothing would have been the same without your great passion, enormous commitment, and hands-on action. You have succeeded to reach all milestones planned for our development by convincing so many people to believe in your vision and to what was possible. You have been an excellent captain for our ship, and we all thank you for your leadership. And you are now handing it over in a very good shape. 2022 was an extraordinary year in terms of research successes. Our institution is performing at an exceptional level despite any temporary economic difficulties. The Cyprus Institute remains very appealing for staff and students, and it is an important building block of the research and education scene here in Cyprus, the region, and beyond. Dear Costa, thank you for everything you have done for this community and for leading us to where we are now. The Institute exists and thrives because of your sheer drive to make this a success. On a quick personal note, thank you for everything you have taught me. I couldn't have asked for a better mentor. Let me say, and this is no exaggeration, that an era has come to an end, and a new era is dawning with a familiar face for the Institute, a great supporter of our vision and efforts from also the very beginning. Dear Stavro, you are being asked to lead this institution and successfully transform it according to the new needs and new directions. Our ambitions for the future should not be modest. We won't become the oldest or the largest institution for higher education and research, but we can definitely become the most impactful one. Dear Stavro, we are very much looking forward to leading us through this new exciting era. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yangu. It is with great honor that I invite the founding president and the CEO of the CREF, Professor Papanikolas, for his speech.
I'm truly moved, even have heard so many exaggerations here, which is at the borderline of embarrassment, what you heard about me. But it's truly moving because there is this love, I would say, that comes out of these exaggerations for the common path we have been following all these years. And that I do appreciate very much. It's probably the most important thing that comes, because I won't go into philosophizing. Really, it's a characteristic that has marked this board, the commonality of purpose and the comradeship, comrades in arm to fulfill a very lofty vision that is at the foundation of this, of CREF and the Cyprus Institute. This handover ceremony, as you can understand, is at the crossroad between fundamental sciences and engineering and expertise developments. This is the committee words. and knowing how tough this committee and adhering to the highest possible standards for which ERC is known for, it's really a tremendous accolade. I certainly feel gratified to hand over an institution that has been evaluated by this truly world-class, very demanding committee and reached the aforementioned conclusion. I attribute this success to 4 factors. A, the particularly compelling vision of CREF, and which is the mission of the Cyprus Institute. Already Didier alluded that he was attracted by such a vision. And indeed, it continues to play a key role in convincing this extraordinary board which finds time to come and help this little institution at the edges of Europe. This has its origins in the humanistic view of world-renowned scientists. I call them the founding fathers. This is the team that designed the blueprint of the establishment of the Institute between 1999 and 2002. It included truly giants of science. I'll say only a few names. If I gave the names of who contributed to this institution, it will be a phone book. So I'll say a few indicative names. Hubert Curian, Giuri Son, Ernest Moniz, Herwig Schober, Jose Maria Gago, Joshua Jorner, Fotis Kafados, Harold Varmus, Kostas Stefanis, and from the banking and visionary sector that Edouard said, Johnny Ioannidis, Andreas Muskos, George Philogibrou, and those from the Cyprus community that surrounded it and supported and helped adopt this plan to the local environment and facilitated its acceptance by the society, by government, President George Vassiliou, Petros Kariklas, Erato Markouli, Androula Vassiliou, to mention some which are among with us. I won't continue because, as I said, I will take, it will look like me reading the phone book. B, so it's a visionary plan, visionary architecture, as highlighted already before, but then we come to what Didier is telling his students, and that's where the board comes in. The CREF board that has been the guardian, that's the second contribution, and the guardian angel of the Cyprus Institute. The first board meeting, formal board meeting, was held in January 2005. And it was the first chair of the board was none else than Hubert Curian, a giant of global science, European science. As you may know, he founded the European Space Agency, Academia Europea, played key role in everything. I stop here. I'm not going to give you a CV of Curian. But unfortunately, a month later, he died. He played a role, though, from 2000 in the formation of this plan. Well, miraculously, and actually I have to tell also Edouard that we had some discussions and Schober, I remember a discussion with Schober and Moniz, and say, hey, maybe we can convince this guy, Edouard Brezen, who is the the president at the time of the French Academy of Sciences, since Curian was also before I believe you, the president of the Academy of Sciences, just let's try. And miraculously, yeah, I'll say a few words. Miraculously accepted. Petros remembers this date. We went there. Petros was there, Johnny Anidis, Andreas Muskos. So we went into this very impressive building of Institut de France, with the golden dome opposite to the Louvre. And we expected the president of the French Academy to arrive in his limousine to greet us and to thank him. Then we see somebody coming with a bicycle. Everybody was, yes, Edouard Brazil. So he assumed the chairmanship of the board. He and Andreas Muskos, who was the chair of the executive committee, and Herwig Schober, who was essentially, we didn't call it like that at the time, the chair of the Scientific Advisory Council, was an unbelievable team. It's true, I contributed a bit, but this board with this leadership is something else. I mean, I can tell you who the other members are. It's really an unbelievable story. They steered Cyprus Institute through the early days of bliss, which was to be followed by the horrible days of unfair attacks. And Edouard Bresson, in these difficult days, coined historical periods. This period he called the Dark Ages. And they steered it out of this danger. At the end of this period, around 2013, using Edouard's historical period, he classifies that the Renaissance age starts. And a couple of years later, we have another, well, by stature, Edouard had to leave. His 8 years were over. And again, we had some discussions, and everybody said, in the review committee that we had in 2011, this guy Riska looked wonderful. Can we entice him to and convince him to take the chairmanship of the board? And miraculously, he accepted. He arrived not with a bicycle, he arrived with a plane, offered through strikes. And this led to today, where he's handing over this to Didier. Dan Olof Riska, together with Andreas Pitas, who has succeeded Andreas Muskos as chair of the executive committee, bring new dynamism into this Renaissance region in difficult times, and it's a very constructive, difficult period, which results to what we have today. I do not have time to mention the exceedingly creative and engaged rostrum of trustees that have contributed in this. C, the third pillar of this success, I would say, is the very visionary and exceedingly relevant research agenda of the Institute. That, again, Didier alluded, the very blueprint that established the Cyprus Institute had a very well-researched research agenda, which has carefully evolved under the guidance of the scientific advisory of the council of the board to what is the research agenda today. It continues to be most impressive, very timely. Actually, in 2000, I remember that we had climate change on the agenda, and most people were asking us, are you going to do meteorology, really? So climate change, its impacts, ways to ameliorate them. Energy transition, decarbonize all sectors of the economy, digitalization, make everything smart, on and on. This couldn't be more timely and more appealing and more in tune with EU priorities, national priorities, and that is part, clearly, of the success, why we are so successful in attracting top researchers and funding. Finally, and probably the most important today part, is the faculty, researchers, staff that now define the Institute and make it what it is. They are the embodiment of its mission and its excellence. Any visitor, and I have heard from many of them, as they go through the state-of-the-art laboratories of the Institute, the offices, the meeting rooms, the cafeteria, the amphitheater, they sense a special Cyprus Institute atmosphere, a special academic setting exuberating an aura of excellence, worldly view, confidence, and humility at the same time. And of course, they are right. Every objective metric confirms it, but it cannot capture it or describe it. This goes back to the original thing of the humanitarian view of science. In this new era, Stavros Malas assumes the presidency. He's not a newcomer to the scene. He has been following and supporting from the very, very beginning, before the creation of the Cyprus Institute, the vision and the impact of it. He has been following it, supporting it, and he has been very vocal in telling the Cyprus community, and I don't have to tell you that the Cyprus Institute is not a household term. Stavros Malas is in Cyprus. They know, more people know Stavros Malas than they know the Cyprus Institute. It's true. This is not a joke. He has been following and supporting us. Over and again, I have heard him in social gatherings, in receptions, etc., praising the Institute, lobbying for it, and stressing how special and unique this place is. At several occasions, quite often, I had most productive one-to-one discussions with Stavros at cafes or at institutes or over a beer or discussing its evolution, and it has been always most illuminating and supportive. I will not praise Stavros any further. I don't want to do the damage the previous speakers have done to me. But instead, I will read an objective evaluation from the Bourguignon report. Okay? So it says, this is a quote from the evaluation committee, hot off the press. The evaluation committee was very pleased to have the opportunity to interact with the next president and to listen to his carefully crafted presentation. The issues he proposed to tackle as soon as he takes office resonate well with the content of the report. His knowledge of the Cyprus Institute and of the political milieu of Cyprus ensures that he will immediately be in a capacity to act and lead the transformation of the transformations that the Cyprus Institute needs. The committee wishes him success and fun. This is interesting from such a committee to even wish fun at taking the lead over this fine institution. Stavro, I'm so delighted that you accepted and you are taking the helm of this wonderful institution at this most creative and successful phase. As we observed the other day in our discussion, the opportunities and growth of Cyprus Institute are boundless. In this new era, you, Didier, Andreas, and David, our new David Andelmar, the new chair of the Scientific Advisory Council, succeeding Didier, and the members of the board, the SAC, the Cyprus Institute faculty, staff, researchers, students are destined to lead the Cyprus Institute to an era of maturity, of local, regional, and international engagement and excellence at the level that this island, and I would dare say the region, has not seen before. My best wishes for this trip that you just now start.
Thank you, Professor Papanikolas. We would like to thank you for your leadership, your commitment, and your visionary approach in leading the Cyprus Institute. Now, I would like to welcome the current president of the Cyprus Institute, Professor Stavros Malas, to say a few words.
Thank you. Colleagues, esteemed members of the boards, I can manage this, I think. Yes, okay. I'm truly honored to be standing before you and observing this humble but very inclusive ceremony. So, indeed, I have been a very long-standing friend of the Institute. I met this Institute when I was actually sitting in a booklet that it was presented to me in 2001, a few months when I arrived in Cyprus, by Mr. Ioannidis. So he found out that I was representing Cyprus at the European Commission, and he thought that the European Union that we were about to join, it was a cash cow, and we were able to get the 500 million euros that that plan actually stipulated to get the Institute going. But of course, the 500 million euros, even if it was founded, you wouldn't have been able to achieve what you have achieved today unless there was vision, stamina, plan, and of course, above all, somebody to steer this idea into success, and that is Kostas Papanikolas. If you look at the history of Cyprus, the last 30 years, we have created universities, institutes, and so on. It's a very young country. But to actually say that you have created an institute which in 15 years has become the lighthouse of academic excellence and in the country, and the most prominent ambassador of this country in the region and internationally, is a truly outstanding achievement, and I think that speaks for itself. You know, to navigate through, to reach scientific excellence, it's a very, very turbulent journey. Sometimes you meet objective, sometimes you meet subjective problems and difficulties. Both were handled well. This institute, however, has not reached the altitude to go on the autopilot. Now we have to navigate to even more challenging times together. And I'm very, very pleased that I met many of you, and all collectively you have vision, you have determination, you have patience, and above all, you have dedication. And I really want to thank you for choosing to work in this outstanding institute and for actually being so friendly and welcoming to me over the last few days, and in particularly the students. I want to thank the students because they've been so open in the discussions we have. I will meet every one of you over these next weeks. You have to credit me with a little bit of time. Now, we've had many allies. We had friends, but we had allies. You had allies in this journey. First of all, you had very eminent scientists that probably didn't know where Cyprus is and joined together to actually translate a vision that was on paper into reality, and that is really a truly outstanding achievement because they came in a country that didn't have a culture of research and didn't have a culture of higher education, and I think that's very important. In this journey, there were some allies that we need to thank, and I'm sure you all agree that the very first idea came into reality because the then government of late Papadopoulos, Tassos Papadopoulos, did actually agree to put the money in to translate this to a reality. The next government also supported that tremendously, sometimes with difficulties. I know what Kostas has in mind. I totally agree with him. But of course, the present government also supported. It's been a very difficult journey, but sometimes we have to acknowledge the politicians that actually contributed to this. The boards. I had the opportunity to work with the boards and the SAC the last few days. They mean business. And I've had the opportunity to work with other boards that they don't necessarily mean business. They take credit of the position that they have rather than give credit to the position they serve. We have people that give credit to the position they serve, and I think we want to thank them. And Kostas said it all. I won't repeat the names. Some of the history is actually sitting here. Some of it is hanging outside as well. You will see it. Finally, I want to thank Kostas. Now, I met Kostas from the very beginning I came to Cyprus. I was one of the very few people that believed in professionalism and tried to navigate through difficult times in my previous life through espousing high standards of professionalism, high standards of academic excellence to achieve something, because I think you really need to walk on your own feet when you actually go up the ladder and not get pushed. And Kostas came to this country. He actually sacrificed some of his career to achieve what he has achieved today. And Kostas has been really an unrelenting person in some ways. He has an unwavering tenacity and support and determination to move forward. He has, I'm sure, in fact I know, many times he regretted it, and I know that at the beginning he thought, yes, that's probably not a good idea. But he navigated through. He had a lot of difficulties because he had to operate in an environment that was not really conducive to support these kind of very mature initiatives, and he managed to achieve this. So, and of course this is not the buildings, it's really the achievement, it's the academic excellence, and of course it is this large greenhouse which has all the excellent people that are sitting before me here today, my colleagues. So what I like to say to you, and commit myself, not the commit myself, okay? I commit myself to work collectively with you, all you, with determination, with vision, and above all, with confidence, and I want to thank you.
Thank you, Professor Malas. We would like to thank you for accepting to lead our institute. We are confident that under your leadership, our institute will progress even more. I now invite the current president, Professor Stavros Malas, to present Professor Papanikolaou with a small present and also a small present for the Board of Trustees.
So I want to say something about the present. So, I'm back again. So, I want to present Kostas a present. Where is the present? Just in case we don't have it. So the present is a pomegranate tree. Not the real tree, but... So, now pomegranate. Pomegranate really has a symbol. For those that know pomegranate, if you eat it, it's of course giving you health. If you take the seeds and mash them up and make the oil and put it on your face, it gives you beauty. And of course, the reason we've chosen that is because we all want to be healthy, strong, and beautiful, yes? And that's the message. Now, that's that. I also want to give a present to the members of the board. Now, we've chosen Commandaria. Now, you may say you've chosen Commandaria because you like it. Well, last night we went to the restaurant and we drank one bottle, and then a second one, and then the third one, and they ran out of the bottles. So the restaurant said to me, has never happened to us in the past to have a table to drink 3 bottles of Commandaria with ice. So why Commandaria? It is, as you probably know, the oldest wine on earth, 800 BC. But there is really something that you need to know, and it has to do with this institute. Commandaria, throughout the years, was forgotten and was revived during the period that the French came to Cyprus, yes? So Francocratia, 1200, 1200, and I think 1482 or 89, the Petro Diocletian history. So that period. So it has a symbol. First is Commandaria, and I give it to our commanders, the members of our board. Most of them are French. And we want to thank them because they took the seed, the booklet, and made it an adult. And thank you for that. It is a vintage Commandaria, by the way, not the Commandaria that you find on the shelf. It's a vintage Commandaria. That means, that means it's a good Commandaria. Thank you very much. So that's for that. Costa. I am going to give the chair of the board on behalf of the rest of the board, and then the rest of the board will be given the Commandaria by Suzanne, who has actually organized this at a moment's notice. Thank you, Susanna. So I want to give this, and then Kostas will give the... Sorry, we have a logistics. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now I would like to invite, and now I think I'm right, the CEO of the CREF, Professor Papanikolaos, to present our outgoing and incoming chairs with a small present on behalf of the CREF Board of Trustees.
Dan Olof will transport it to you. We'll zoom it, so please teletransport it. Eduard. Thank you very much. So, really. Yes. Thank you.
We will now continue with the unveiling of the portraits of the past chairs of the Board of Trustees at the foyer of the Fresnel building, so we invite you all to join us. I would like to ask the Chair of the Board, the CEO of the CREF and the President of the Cyprus Institute to unveil the portraits of past chairs of the Board of Trustees in the foyer. Thank you.